Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and today we are breaking down the DFS preview of the Travelers Championship. Joining me as he does every Tuesday, it's Greg DuCharme. What's up, Greg?
Rick, another fascinating week last week. Oh, man, I had so much fun last week. You killed it, so I'm excited to hear your picks for today. I'm definitely going to be using them.
Thanks, man. Yeah, last week was outside of like literally getting every pick I've made publicly right, like was just enjoyable. Like it was just enjoyable and a lot of fun to watch. Speaking of things to watch, you can watch us on YouTube, Greg. First Cut Pod. Go follow it. Go subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at First Cut Pod, on Instagram as well for all the latest and greatest. Right, Greg?
All the latest and greatest. You can actually see our faces should you choose. You don't have to look, but, you can go over there. You can like and subscribe, follow along. Yeah, it's good fun. I thought our recap of the RBC Heritage that you, Kyle, and myself did, I had a blast during that episode. There were so many – it was like very reminiscent of what the tournament was like. So it was great fun. You can see it all right on YouTube. So it definitely take a look.
There you go. This week, Travelers Championship, third week in a row, we are getting this star-studded field. This time, they're headed to Connecticut. TPC River Highlands. It's a par 70. It's going to play about, 68,500 yards, 68.41 on the scorecard. Greg, we've seen a lot of different types of winners here. Obviously, Bubba eats up 3 of the wins in like the last 10 years. But I mean, Ches Reavie won this last year. We have a Jordan Spieth sighting in 2017. Ken Duke, how about that name from 2013? Like there is a lot of ways to get it done.
See, this is so interesting to me. There's a really interesting parallel between last week and this week. And both of these tournaments are normally played the week after a major. So while the Travelers is a tournament that has been drawing a much better field year after year, it is a favorite of the players on the PGA Tour. Despite all that, it's still the week after a major. So part of me thinks an RBC Heritage typically right after Masters. So it's almost emotionally an exhale week. It's a little bit of a letdown week for some of these guys. Not that they don't care. That's not what I'm saying. It's just you're trying to peak for the week before this tournament. So a lot of the guys will take it off, or a lot of the guys will kind of be there in a more relaxed state than now. And now in this situation this week, we kind of have like a major championship feel. Like last week, this is a big deal. All the best players are here. What is it, 9 of the top 10?
Yes.
It's an extremely stacked leaderboard again, and these guys care, and they want to get wins. So I find that to be very interesting as it relates to past success and this success. I'm interested to get your thoughts on that. You think that has any effect?
Well, it's interesting. And we were kind of talking about this before we hit the record button, where this 3-week stretch that's fresh on everyone's mind, what we've been talking about a lot is like, yes, distance is great everywhere, but it is not a prerequisite. It is not required at either Colonial or especially at Harbor Town, in which I think Harbor Town actively negates your advantage of distance off the tee. River Highlands, TPC River Highlands, very short course, just 6,800 yards, not long, but this is a course where you can kind of start to open it up a little bit. So I think it is much more valuable to get those off the tee, potentially longer guys. We'll talk about one here in just a second, but like we're getting out of this. It's almost like, you have the Florida swing. This is almost like the short course swing, or like the swing that anybody can win, because it's kind of so wide open.
So I've played TPC River Highlands before. It's not too far from me. It's probably about 2 hours away from me. So I've played the golf course, and I've been to the Travelers it was a while ago. But anyway, it's kind of like a cow pasture in a way. Now, where it's very spacious. There is a lot of land there. And it's a farm. Cromwell's a farm town. So it's very, very wide open. And I don't mean cow pasture in a negative way. It's a beautiful golf course. It's just that it's not tight. Like Carvertown's so tight and you feel kind of claustrophobic. This one's open. And there are a number of holes, a number of tee shots where you can really, really let it go. And a couple tighter ones. Number 10 I would consider to be a tighter tee shot. 14 can be a little tight. And then 17 is one. But again, that's like an iron off the tee. So there's not really too many daunting tee shots because it's narrow. Now, the rough can get a little bit longer. Greens can get a little faster. There hasn't been a lot of rain up here in Connecticut at all. I mean, we haven't had a washout day in a very long time. So I do think the golf course will play firm and fast, and that makes it a wedge fest for sure. So I agree with you where guys off the tee can definitely have their way with it. But I think the biggest separator is going to happen with the wedge play.
If you have questions about fantasy strategy, betting strategy, anything like that, feel free to drop it in an Apple Podcast review. We will get through them as many as we can. And also the reviews help us a ton. That allows us to do fun stuff like that. But if you drop a question in the Apple Podcast review, we will answer it. For this week, Greg, okay, so now we have another situation where we are going to be seeing a few bigger names for the first time. Patrick Cantlay will be making his, post-shutdown debut. Paul Casey, who has just phenomenal course history, probably second to only Bubba. When you look at tournament history, Casey's going to be making his debut. So now we have this situation again where we're trying to find this balance of, will these guys be rusty? What do we trust them? Do we not trust them for guys that should, in theory, set up pretty well for the course?
The rust is fascinating because I do believe you saw some players come back with a little bit of, maybe you call it rust. Maybe it was overexcitement. John Rahm missing the cut at the Charles Schwab Challenge. Is that rust? Was he just excited? It's hard to differentiate the two, especially when you have players like Daniel Berger who have come out just racing out of the gates and they're ready to go. Bryson come racing out of the gates, ready to go. Justin Thomas, much of the same. It's hard to say that there's rust for those players. So that kind of success early, it makes it really hard to choose a guy like Patrick Cantlay, but it's hard to make a decision on a Patrick Cantlay. Hard to make a decision on a Paul Casey. What's to say they're not going to be more fresh than everybody else? So I don't know. Do you steer away from these guys? Are you nervous about picking a Patrick Cantlay or Paul Casey?
No. I don't think so. I think that I trust those guys. Maybe I can't say that for everybody. I mean, we did not say that for Dustin Johnson, but I feel like I trust those guys. Top of the betting board, top of the DraftKings player pool. 6 guys over $10,000, led by Rory McIlroy, 11,200, Bryson DeChambeau, a flat 11, Justin Thomas, 10.8, Webb, 10.5, John Rahm, 10.2, Brooks Koepka, 10,000. Greg, this is the first week, and it kind of depends on where you get this. Rory is not the betting favorite, which is kind of crazy. Now, William Hill actually has Rory and Justin Thomas as co-favorites. So if you look at that and compare it to the salaries, Justin Thomas, who is the third most expensive golfer and the co-favorite to win, you would say that is built-in value.
It's absolutely built-in value. Definitely something to take a look at. But then again, at the same time, Rory McIlroy at 11,200 on DraftKings, that's a really low price for him. I mean, I haven't seen, and you would know more than me on this, Rick, he hasn't been below 11.6 all year that I've seen.
It's definitely the lowest in the last 3 since the shutdown. I would have to go back further than that, but it is a very fair and reasonable price for Rory McIlroy.
And so Bryson would be another player who I'm very interested. I'm interested in all the players that are above 10,000 this week. But Rory has my interest more than usual this week. I typically stay away from the top guy because, especially when it's been Rory, because he's just been so far ahead. He's been there's been such a high price on him. So do you think Rory, and again, the concern I have with Rory is what happens on Sunday, what happens with his putting. maybe that's unfair, but I see a guy who gets himself into contention or gets himself into moments where you really need a big round from him. And if he misses a putt early, a should make putt, somewhere between say 5 and 10 feet, 4 and 8 feet, he misses one of those and the round seems to go kind of south and he puts himself out of contention. Do you think Rory's going to be a little more popular because of that lower price this week?
I don't know. It's interesting. So I'm looking back at his salary history here. So he was 10,006 at the Tour Championship, but that doesn't really count because it was the staggered start and the salaries were staggered.
And he started at 5 under, right?
He was five back. Yeah. So that doesn't really count. But then the last time that he was below his price this week was the 2019 US Open. He was 10,500 at Pebble Beach. Usually the pricing is softer for majors, so that makes sense. So this is a really good discount. Kyle made this point when I was chatting with him that basically, like, Rory's played 2 courses since this restart that he never plays or hasn't played in a long time. And he might not play them because they might not be good fits for him. There might be a lot of shots that don't fit his eye. This is a place that he's played. Now, he hasn't played it. He didn't play it last year, but he played the 2 previous years, and he finished 12th in 2018 and 17th in 2017. So I guess what I'm getting at is I'm more optimistic this week on Rory with the price and the history than the previous 2 weeks.
I totally agree with you. Makes sense that he didn't play last year. It was a West Coast U.S. Open. So to make that trip is kind of maybe you feel unnecessary. So I totally understand that. I love the price. I still love his game, tee to green. And I think he's going to be able to air it out a little more this week. It's not as claustrophobic of a course as the last 2 we've played. And again, you could say he's had just a couple of really bad 9s and didn't really get hot with the putter. I can definitely go Rory McIlroy this week. But if you don't want to spend 11-2, Justin Thomas is a really good value at 10-8, don't you think?
Yeah, so I love JT, and I think he's trending towards the win. Also, like these guys who are really who are this short, under 20-1, they win like half the golf tournaments on the PGA Tour. We are now 0 for 2 on the restart because Berger was 66, Webb was 30. Like the big dogs are lurking, and I think JT is lurking. I'm pretty much convincing myself that Bryson is going to win this. And my thought process is 2 courses the last 2 weeks that were not great fits for him. He still figured out a way to be 1 shot out of a playoff and then finish T8. And it was that round he had on Saturday at Harbor Town. He lost a stroke off the tee, lost a stroke on approach. He has not done that in his last 27 rounds. It was a really bad round for him. And he still, even as everyone's moving around him, finds a way to get a top 10. Like, he's going to be able to open it up a little bit more. There's no way we go much longer without Bryson winning a golf tournament.
And he has a pretty good record here. I mean, last 2 years inside the top 10, which you got to like. I mean, again, I do think he can air it out here. It's almost like the only question is he too long? Like 15 is his drivable par 4. That's like 280 yards. Is he going to hit an iron off that tee?
Yeah, what is he going to hit?
There are a couple of holes out there where I'm not sure what's he going to hit on 11 par. I guess he's probably going to hit like a 3 o'clock 9 iron or something. So I don't know. I don't know how Bryson will attack the golf course, but it's certainly an advantage. Number 2 for him certainly becomes drivable. You already have 15, which is going to be, I'm not kidding. He's going to hit iron off number 15, probably all 4 days, unless it's into the wind significantly. And he's going to reach the green. So it's a huge advantage. It's like you have an extra par 3, but it's a par 4. So, Bryson, I can feel it, and I continue to kind of, I don't want to say overlook him, but the 2 guys I mentioned in this range are Rory and Justin Thomas. Of course, I leave out the guy who won last week. And Bryson, you got to figure Bryson's going to put himself in the mix again this week.
I don't know how he does it. We'll see. Now, for the second week in a row, we kind of get this compacted $9,000 range. I don't
Yeah.
remember, and maybe it's been because it's been 3 months off, but like I don't remember the player pools being like this. I always thought we'd have like 4 or 5 guys at 10K. We'd have like 6 or 8 and 9, and it'd just be like this is like I think there was like 5 guys last week. There's I don't know 6 this week. Cantlay's back at 98. Xander's in there at 96. DJ 94. Then you go to Rosie at 92, Morikawa at 91, and Abe Answer, who tried to steal that golf tournament last week, at a flat $9,000. This continues to feel like the section that like wins or loses you $1 million.
It's such an interesting section. I mean, the guy that stands out to me the most. Patrick Cantlay is interesting because you almost wonder again, like, do you go down and start a lineup there with him? Maybe that's a little risky since he hasn't played. So Cantlay is kind of at an awkward price for me. Even though I like him, I love all of his statistics at a golf course like this. It's hard not to. I mean, he's fourth strokes gained approach the green. He's definitely a top 5 player, and I don't have that one in front of me. But 43rd off the tee, fourth approach the green. I'm pretty sure he's like 5th or something tee to green, and he came in tied 15th the last 2 years. So that makes so much sense, but it's kind of an awkward price for me, especially when you look down a couple players at Justin Rose. And I kind of feel the same way you do about Bryson DeChambeau. Justin Rose is just primed and ready to go, and he's ready for a win. I mean, Justin Rose looks like he is going to win one of these tournaments. And I get the sense that he's just at this maturity level that a lot of the other guys in this group simply aren't.
I'll tell you what, man, he looks so good. I really agree. He flips the switch. He flipped the switch during the shutdown, whether it was the clubs or whether it was confidence or whether it was a combination of the two. One shot out of the playoff at Colonial, played great at Harbor Town. Like, yeah, dude's knocking again. He's back in shape. What about friend of the pod, Colin Morikawa? He's $9,100. If this does turn into a second shot course, which it tends to be, we know what Morikawa can do. I guess really the only concern, I think there's 2 ways to look at this. You know, he loses in a playoff by missing a putt. He made the cut last week, but kind of floundered around. He finished 64th. So he still has the cut streak going. He dropped I think he was like 10,000 something last week. Now he's 9,100. Like, I think this kid is resilient. I love his attitude. I want to buy back in at 91.
It is a great price on him. I got this sense last week that there may be a little bit of pressure mounting with him. So I kind of feel like there's this cut streak pressure. There's this conversation about how good this kid's going to be. And he feels like maybe he really let one go with the missed putt. I don't know where he is mentally based on that, but I get a sense that there's a lot of pressure kind of building with him. So it makes me a little bit nervous. He's extremely talented. It's a good golf course for him because every golf course is a good one for him. But I just have a hard time finding – I think I'm so much higher on Justin Rose than Colin Morikawa this week. I have a hard time fitting him in to a lot of lineups. So I'm a fade on Morikawa. I wonder if there's just a little too much pressure.
Would it be a long-term positive for Morikawa to miss a cut and just have us stop talking about this? You know, it's like when Coach K at Duke, like he wants his team to lose like 2 weeks before the tournament starts so that like you get a little adversity, you can work through it. You don't want to go 35-0 headed into the tournament. Like I could almost argue we should just get this streak over with.
I see where you're coming from, but no, I don't think so. I think it would be more beneficial for him to take a week off, get a little rest and recoup, get his thoughts together, get out of the limelight a little bit, and come back ready to win a tournament again. You know, it's so interesting when the cut streak is in your mind, when making the cut is in your mind. This is something Brooks Koepka has talked about before. You tend to finish around the cut, right? Brooks was trying to make cuts, and he would finish right around the cut. Then he shifted his focus to, I want to start to finish in the top 10. And every time he played, he seemed to finish right around the top 10. And when he finally got it in his head that he could win, and he started to get in his head that he wanted to win, he was finishing right around the lead, especially in majors, and he ended up winning a lot. And so I wonder if Morikawa is if his head is in a space where he's thinking about making the cut in a week like last week rather than winning. Take a week off, get yourself rested and recouped, and come back with a focus on winning. And Colin Morikawa, the cut streak will be so far in the back of his mind because he'll just be focused on winning, which he can do.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I think when we talked to Morikawa, he mentioned that quote from Brooks, and he was like, that like changed kind of the way I thought about things.
Yeah.
And then he rattled off a couple of like top 10s right after that. Okay, so looking at kind of some of these betting odds, I mean, Bryson, for the guys we've talked about, like Bryson's 14-1. Justin Rose is 28. Like, if you like Rose, that's a really good number. He's he's below Cantlay. He's in the same spot as DJ and Xander. Like, that's a pretty good number on Rose, I would think.
It's my number one bet, I think, for in a bet to win. He's ready to go. He's just bubbling on the surface. I like Bryson too. It seems like a good golf course for Bryson. So it's hard to find negatives about Bryson, hard to find negatives about Justin Rose. But I like the odds. I mean, Rose, he's my top bet to win. The question isn't who my top bet to win is. The question is who's your top bet to win.
Yeah. So like JT and Bryson have my full attention. They have my full attention.
Yep, deservedly so.
I do not usually bet the top of the board. I like to live in the 25 to 35 range. And then I like to get a couple of bullets in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I don't like to live at the top because it's so hard to win golf tournaments. So hard to win. But I will tell you, those two guys are like, the more I just sit here and look at this, and I'm a numbers guy, Greg, you know that Bryson has to win. Like, he has to win soon. I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's, I don't know. He might probably takes a week off next week, but like, the dude's going to have to win at some point. He cannot keep playing like this and not win.
So I got a question for you. You're going to go, you mentioned it's so hard to win golf tournaments, and like over a period of time, as a bettor over a period of time, you like to live in a certain range. Yeah. It sounds like that is a strategy where you're kind of going to ride ebbs and flows. When you win, you'll get better odds. So you'll kind of recoup for some losses when the superstars do actually win. But if you had to just bet, you're just betting 1 week. This week, it's the first bet you've ever placed on the game of golf. If you win, you may bet again. If you lose, you're done betting golf forever. Where do you go? Are you at the top this week?
Yeah. I'd bet Bryson or JT, like almost exclusively those two. I think that they eat up a lot of the win equity in this field. Yeah.
You heard it here first. First Cut Podcast.
Oh boy. Fingers crossed. See if we can hit another one. All right. Here's what we'll do. We'll jump into the 8Ks. I love the 8K range, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. $8,000 led by Paul Casey at 8,900. Bubba Watson. I've heard Bubba likes this course. Not sure if we've talked about that. 8,800. Then you've got Patrick Reed, Sungjae, Sergio, Spieth, Woodland, Finau, Fitzpatrick, and Mark Leishman. Oh my. Let's just start with Bubba, Greg. He's 8,800. Presumably will be one of the more popular golfers on the slate because of the, 3-time champion status that he holds here.
It's a Bubba course. We say that there are a couple throughout the year that are Bubba courses, and he's basically made his living on a handful of courses. He's made a Hall of Fame career out of a handful of golf courses. Right?
Riviera, here, TPC River Highlands, and Augusta National.
Yep, that's exactly right. Now, there have been a couple other places where he's played well occasionally, but this is where he's created a Hall of Fame career. No question about it. So do I like Bubba this week? Yes. I love Bubba this week. You're right. He'll be really popular, which, last week, Webb Simpson, I think it was like 27% ownership or something.
This is a testament to, I think people are getting smarter and sharper because a couple of years ago, okay, so let's rewind. Charles Schwab, Webb was the most popular golfer on the slate and missed the cut, in which 2 years ago, that would have been a death sentence for his number the next the next week, no one would have played him off the missed cut. He then was like the highest player again, highest owned player again last week. So that's people getting smarter that it's okay to miss a cut. It's not the end of the world.
Right. I totally understand that. So I could see Bubba being really close to the highest owned. Is that crazy for Bubba to end up being the highest owned player this week?
So I think it's going to happen. I probably will not participate in that because, like, okay, it's one thing for Webb to be the highest owned golfer. He's like, outside of that weird miscut, the first start back is like one of the most consistently good players on the face of the earth.
Right.
Bubba, on the other hand, Bubba and consistency do not go hand in hand. Yes, he could finish, he could pop off and win this thing as he's done 3 times in the last decade, or he goes out and misses the cut. Like, I don't want to be on the 25% guy who is as volatile as anything.
Couple good things that I like about Bubba this week. Tied 7th at the Charles Schwab, which I like. 16th in strokes gained putting this year. Very, very unlike Bubba numbers. Bubba's not a guy you can pay attention to stats on, in my opinion, because he's so dependent on the course, right?
Yeah.
It's like if it's a Bubba course, he'll play well. It doesn't matter what his numbers are. He'll become the best putter you've ever seen in Georgia in April. But then you get him at the Players Championship, and he's the worst putter on the PGA Tour. So it's hard to find your balance with Bubba. But I do like that. I see signs of Bubba having a little bit of confidence, which going into this course can be very good. The big concern is that ownership probability. But then again, if he wins, you don't want to miss out on that. I mean, if you didn't bet Webb last week, you really missed out.
Yeah, because our timeline was filled with Webb tickets last week. Everybody was sending their screenshots in. It was wild. Yes, you don't want to miss it. Yes, you're absolutely right.
So I guess where are we? I guess with Bubba, if he fits in your lineup, but I'm not building a lineup around Bubba. There's a couple other guys I like in the 8.
Yeah, 8K. I think we both like Sergio, right?
Yes, no question.
Yeah, he led the field in strokes gained tee to green last week, almost 14 more than Abraham Answer, more than Joaquin Niemann. I mean, literally more than everybody. He led the field. Lost 3 strokes putting. If this is going to be another ball strikers course, another ball strikers week, dang, sir. And he charged on Sunday, which is like always such a good sign to see. We talked about it. Okay, this was low key almost the best thing that happened last week. Is after 36 holes, we came on here and I read off Sergio was 80-1 or something. I put it in. I took a piece of it. He's flying up the leaderboard on Sunday. And I'm like, oh my God, we gave out an 80-1 on Friday night. Like, somebody
took it. I'm telling you, Rick, you were just on fire.
I know. It was crazy.
Here's the thing, the big positive to Sergio. So on course record this morning, Michael Breed, who majors in putting, right? He's a golf coach who majors in putting. And he was so impressed with Sergio's putting stroke. And though the numbers weren't great, he had the ball rolling. It was at the right weight, right? It's at dead weight. He's back to the claw. He had it starting on line. He's giving it a chance. And for that reason, you look at Sergio's putting statistics, and he's 209th or something. I think entering last week, he was 209th in strokes gained putting.
It was bad.
It's really bad. But when you look at a player like that coming off of a break, and they're making noticeable improvements in their putting stroke, and you have a national teacher of the year saying, yeah, hey, look, that putting stroke is noticeably better. That's a great sign for me. There's a ton of value to be had there. So I'm with you. Love Sergio this week.
So here's what's kind of interesting. I'm not going to jump tiers here, but Sergio's 8,500. Joaquin Niemann is 7,900. The parallels are very strong right here between these two. They are both 45-1 to win the golf tournament. They were first and third in strokes gained strokes gained tee to green last week. Both made a charge on Sunday. So like Niemann might be the discount Sergio, if that kind of makes sense.
For some reason, I'm not to a point where I trust Joaquin yet. It doesn't mean you can't play him, because I just don't trust him yet. I see too many inconsistencies with him still. He's so young, so it's understandable, and his future is bright. But I'm I'm not to a point yet where I trust him week to week to week. He's going to rip off good weeks, and he may have a good stretch of weeks. But where is he over the long haul? I don't know yet.
So let's do this. You have to erase everything you know about Sergio, okay? And like, who do you trust more, 2020 Sergio or 2020 Joaquin Niemann?
Great question.
They're both very inconsistent. They both when the putter gets hot, it gets scorching. They're both great tee to green, and they're both like just as likely to top 5 as miss the cut, I feel like.
It's a great they have win equity. Both of those players have win equity. I would say, here's what I'll say. Joaquin Niemann has more win equity than Sergio, in my opinion.
He might.
Maybe more miscut opportunity, maybe more miscut equity as well.
He might, yeah.
You know what? You may have just sold me. I may play a Joaquin it when we get down to the 7Ks.
Yeah. I think they're both interesting. Just knowing what you're kind of getting. You're getting a really volatile, high upside guy who played well tee to green last week. That's like the most you can ask for out of those two guys, and that's what you're getting.
How about Tony Finau?
Doesn't do it for me.
No?
Nah.
So Tony's got a couple of good finishes here. T17, T25, T25. That's 2017, 2016, 2015. He's 10th strokes gain approach.
When's he going to win?
Maybe this week. I know.
He just doesn't win.
It's heartbreaking because you love him, but he doesn't win.
I love him. But like Leishman, okay, so guys around him, Leishman wins more. Woodland wins more. We think Niemann definitely wins more. Like Hovland has won more recently. Like what are you getting? Like maybe top 5 upside?
I think you got definitely top 5 upside. Look, the guy is he comes in second and loses a heartbreaker in a playoff to Webb Simpson. The Farmers the week before tied 6th. Tied 23rd at Charles Schwab. I understand. I'm with you there. But I'm looking at this guy saying he's got to break through at some point. But it sounds like you're not really interested in going early on Tony Finau. You're interested in being late on him.
I would love it if Tony Finau started winning golf tournaments. He's the best. He's fun to watch. He's the nicest guy. But like when you look at other people and like you can't bet him. You cannot bet. Think about all the bets that have been placed. He's 50-1 this week. Think about all the outright bets that have been placed on Tony Finau in the last 4 years that have literally returned nothing.
Ofer.
Do
you believe in the curse? The Puerto Rico Open curse?
I will. Okay, so Hovland has to break it. Hovland is definitely going to break it. So those who don't know, the curse is no one who's ever won the Puerto Rico Open has ever won another event that wasn't the Puerto Rico Open, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if they've ever won another event at all.
Somebody won the Puerto Rico Open a second time, I think.
Okay.
I can find out in a second. But yes, so the curse is it's like the Madden curse or whatever.
Yeah.
But Hovland now has a chance to be the guy who Michael Bradley won 2009 and 2011, but he never won another event.
Never won anything else. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think Tony can break it too. Hovland and Finau both have to break it. But anyway, I digress on Tony. But I like Tony this week. He's a play for me. I see a lot of good things out of him. Not a bet to win, but he's a play.
Okay. I have to do my Sung J M spot here. So let me just read you a fun little stat, Greg.
Yeah.
Terrible last week. Terrible on the greens. He lost 4.5 strokes putting last week.
Yeah, you tweeted this out.
You see this? His worst performance ever. Second worst performance ever, RBC Heritage last year. 3.7 strokes lost.
Wow.
Those two events account for 31% of all the events he's lost strokes putting in. Those two. By far his worst 2 events as a professional, anything we have measured on him. Like, I buy on Sung Jae all the time. I definitely buy low after a week like that and seeing that Harbour Town just might not be a good spot for him.
It's a very unique golf course in a way, right?
Yeah.
Pete Dye, we know. Tight, we know. He clearly doesn't have the greens figured out.
No, so, not even close.
who knows what it is? It could be a lot of different things. But hearing what he did last year at RBC Heritage is fascinating. It kind of validates it, right? He doesn't have a problem with the putting stroke. There's like a kind of a course issue going on. So that is a great bet to win, I think.
Yeah, he's 35-1. So his odds have been kind of all over the place in this restart because he came back I think his odds were really short in like the first week. Now, obviously that he's missed the cut, he's down to 35. And yes, you want to talk about win equity from guys who are 35-1? Like,
yeah,
he's got it for sure.
Super high. Love it. Love Sungjae.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody else here. I don't want to waste any oxygen on Jordan Spieth. Do you?
No, it's no different. He's no different. This is – I looked this up. I'll give you something quick here.
Yeah.
So Jordan Spieth, the positive that we've had on Jordan Spieth here is he's making a ton of birdies, right? He's all this excitement. It's a roller coaster. It's up and down. Consider last year, Charles Schwab Challenge, he came in tied 8th. This year, tied 10th. In 2018 and 2019, he was 10th in birdie average both those years. Okay, 10th on tour in birdie average. That means even in his struggles, even in the years that are the worst years of his career, he's making a ton of birdies. So what does that mean? I'm not seeing anything different. With Jordan, it's always been how bad's his bad shot, and does he have any chance to recover? And right now, I mean, I've never heard a guy get 2 bad breaks within 8 holes that end up out of bounds on the PGA Tour. It doesn't come from winners. So, I'm a fade on Jordan.
Here's the stat. For first 2 rounds last week, he was 4th in strokes gained approach. The final 2 rounds, the weekend, he was 3rd worst in the field of everybody who made the cut. Unbelievable volatility from him right now.
He's got some things to figure out. I still root for him, still love the guy, but he's got a lot of figuring out to do.
$7,000 range. There's some names here. There's some names I like. We talked about we talked about Neiman. He's $7,900. Victor Hovland is here. He played, T21 last week. I think 1 round kind of got away from him, but he played well on Sunday. There's a lot here. I mean, Ryan Palmer was in contention. You have the defending champion, Ches Reavie. You have Corey Connors, who has shown up on leaderboards recently. We have Ben On, who is someone that we haven't talked about. I think I've given up on Ben On, by the way. I mean, Dylan Fratelli played well. I mean, he was their clubhouse leader last week. I mean, there's
Brian Harman shot a couple good rounds.
All right, Brian Harman's an interesting one. Is he a guy you like?
I like Brian Harman, but I'm still like I really liked him coming back. I liked him at the Charles Schwab. I liked him last week.
Yeah.
Courses that would really fit him. I'm just not quite. I'm not quite seeing it out of him. Where I'm like, okay, Brian Harman's back to 2017 Brian Harman, where he's contending in the U.S. Open. Taking on Brooks Koepka despite the distance. I'm not quite there yet. So I'm going to take a week off on Brian Harman, but it's probably going to come back to bite me. But, I mean, the guy that I'm going to keep riding is Joel Dahmen. Joel Dahmen just continues to go shoot. He didn't have a great Sunday, but he continues to go out and shoot 63, 65. Like, for a guy that seems to be very steady, his statistics are very steady. He's top 30 in all of the ball striking categories as far as strokes gained are concerned, last time I checked. And he can shoot really low scores for a guy who would seem really steady, a guy who seems like he's kind of average. And I think those low scores, that gives him a little more win equity than we think. So he's still extremely underrated. I'm going to keep riding him.
I like that. Harman is interesting. So Harman is 66-1 if you want to bet him outright. So we've talked about this a couple of times in the past 2 weeks, where basically there are not a lot of guys on tour who gain strokes in all 4 categories. There's not. There's like 12 a week, basically, is what it ends up being. Harman's one of them, believe it or not. And now he's not outstanding in anything, but it is kind of at least recently, a safer floor because he doesn't, if one thing goes wrong, he can kind of make up for it. He has when you talk about course history or tournament history, Bubba, Paul Casey, and Brian Harman have like some of the best history here. Harman has 3 top 8 finishes in the last 5 years. So I'm not a big fan. He only got on my radar because you brought him up the last 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
he's played well. And I'm like, oh man, maybe I don't know how popular he'll be, but like it is interesting. I don't mind it.
He's a good wedge player. That's what I'll
Yeah.
give. He can be a good putter. Past couple of years, it's been a little inconsistent, but he's a really good wedge player, and he can be accurate off the tee. And a course like this could suit him really well. I'm like, oh, he almost the last 2 weeks I was high on him, and he did pretty well, but he almost bored me. So I know this is gonna. I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna take off with Brian Harman this week, and he's gonna win or contend or something.
Chances are he finishes like T32 and we don't even see a shot from him all week, and he just quietly, like, you know what I mean? That's like the most likely outcome.
Right.
The last guy here for me is a guy I wanted to play last week, and he was a late withdrawal. Scotty Scheffler's back in the field. He's 7,600, 2 takeaways for Scotty Scheffler. Ton of birdies. I haven't looked him up recently, but I think he was 4th in birdie average like last week, so he can't be that far off of that this week. And that is so weighted on fantasy sites that he becomes such a good play every week. And the way that he played at Colonial, where he was super popular, he like was +6, I think, off the tee and on approach, and then gave it all away in the short game, which is like
it was like hard to imagine you could give that much away.
Yeah, because he's not like a great short game player, but he's like a very average short game player. So he shouldn't be giving any away. He should be like at 0. And he gave away like 6 shots in those categories. So I'm interested to buy back in on Scotty now coming off a week's worth of rest.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it too. It's a course you can hit a ton of greens on. You really can. You can go out there and hit it really well. It's not like Harbortown. You feel like Abraham Answer proved us wrong, and the greens got really soft. But if Harbortown's a little windy and it gets firm with really small greens, you're going to miss some. It's very likely that you're going to miss some. Colonial's the same way. Short game is usually very important at these courses. The Travelers is a place where you can get it going tee to green, and you can hit a lot of greens. So for that, I love Scotty Scheffler. And I choose Scotty Scheffler over a Brian Harman because of the birdies that you mentioned. I think you're right. He's 4th in birdie average.
Yeah.
So Brian Harman's in the 100s in birdie average. So your chances of having success, especially in a fantasy league, go way up with Scotty Scheffler. So I'm totally with you on that. Love Scotty this week.
The super cheapies. $6,000 range. Phil headlines the $6,000 range at 6,900. Oh boy, it's pretty ugly down here, to be quite frank. Brendan Todd's here. Johnny Vegas is here. You know what this feels like? Okay, this is a kind of a tangent. How come like the really good players never shoot 59? Like, okay, Furyk, I understand, shoots 59, shoots 58. He's an all-timer. He had one of the best strokes gained seasons ever. But like the other guys who shoot 59, why doesn't Rory shoot? Why is Tiger not shot 59?
It's a great question. And I don't know the answer. I don't know. It's really hard to do. It's extremely rare. But look, the truth of the matter is the guys that are playing on the PGA Tour are really good. All of them. Every single one of them. And, I mean, Joel Damon shot 58 in the break. I've been saying it every week. So, like you get on the right course, in the right situation, you turn it up and get really hot, and it can happen. Here's the one point I'll make on it. I believe that the best players, their advantage rises when they get on really hard golf courses. And it's almost like if you put some of the best players in the world in a Korn Ferry Tour event where the course is easy, scoring got really low, they wouldn't win in a runaway because the difference between making a par and a birdie goes down almost. The gap changes and it narrows. So you typically see the cream rise to the top when the challenge increases, the penalty for missing increases. So shot values go up. So that would be maybe it's the courses that offer 59s are a little bit easier and I don't know. That's a hard question to
Yeah,
answer.
I mean, it's impossible to ever find out. But the reason I brought it up is because this is where Furyk shot his 58. This is it. Anybody in the $6,000 range that moves the needle for you?
Look, there's nobody in here where I'm like licking my chops over. There's inherent risk all over this board, as you mentioned. I mean, Carlos Ortiz played great last week, so he's somebody who you may have your eye on. Russell Henley just pops off the page to me. He's a guy who can be a really good iron player, but he's so risky, right? He's going to miss a cut and make a cut, and I have no real trust in him.
Here's Russell Henley's results, because you're absolutely right, Greg. Missed cut at the RBC, 8th at Honda, 17th at Genesis, absolutely stacked field, missed cut at Waste Management. So it's either like a top 15 or a missed cut. And then his last 3 years here, 11th, 6th, missed cut. There is nothing in between. You're getting a top 10 or you are getting a Friday evening departure.
What's his strokes gain approach? You have that in front of you?
Yeah, he's 0.55.
Yeah. So it could be decent. Like he can get really streaky with his iron play.
He's like 22nd in this field in approach, something like that.
How do you feel about taking a chance this week on a Cameron Champ or a Matt Wolff?
Not good. So they're guys I rarely invest in because they are one-trick ponies. Unfortunately, at this point in their career, where Cam Champ specifically, the off the tee game is so good. Everything else is so bad. He needs a lot to go right to find the winner's circle. I feel like, we'll get a bigger sample size on Matthew Wolff as we go through this, but like it's really hard for those guys to put it together. I'll tell you who I like. I like Doc Redman. Doc Redman is $6,700. If you only look at the last 3 rounds last week, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, run the numbers, 4th in strokes gained tee to green. Abraham Answer was better. Sergio was better. Joaquin Niemann was better. That is it. So if he can continue, so he just played poorly. I think he was over par. On Thursday. Goes nuts the final 3 rounds. If he can keep any semblance of that, $6,700 pays for itself easily.
He can get it going. I mean, I think back to the Rocket Mortgage last year. We're right around that same time of year. Maybe he gets a run in him. What do you think? Now, another guy that interests me in this range, I bring this guy up a lot, and he's been playing, I would say, okay. But I feel like he was tied 17th last week. He shot a 67 on Sunday, which wasn't great. But Johnny Vegas, he interests me for some reason. I feel like he's better than his statistics. He drives it really well. 4th strokes gain off the tee for the year. 181st strokes gain approach the green, which and he's 195th strokes gain putting. I was talking to a player early in the year last year, around the time of it was a little bit after the Players. Might have been, I think it was Bronson Burgoon. He was saying Johnny Vegas is putting better than anybody on the PGA Tour. But he was like 165th in strokes gained putting at the time. So you don't always know how up to date the statistics are on a player, and you don't know how close they are. Justin Thomas, for instance, couldn't get a ball to go in the hole for all of Sunday at Colonial, really all week at Colonial, and for the first 3 days at the RBC Heritage, he couldn't get a ball to go in the hole, and all of a sudden on Sunday he shoots 63 because everything goes in. I wonder if there's a really low round for Johnny Vegas coming around the way, and so very risky again, but I kind of like taking a risk with him.
I do like that he is elite off the tee. He is very good off the tee. So he has an elite skill set, which I do like, and he does pop occasionally, which I think is great. So yeah, I think you could do much worse than that, Greg. All right. I think that'll do it.
I don't think we can go any deeper. Right?
No, I don't think so. A reminder, golf will be back on the airwaves this weekend on CBS. We'll have another podcast coming your way with the whole gang where we'll cover matchups, some more outrights, as well as, a little bit of prop action sprinkled in there too, and daily recaps. Those seem popular. after each round. Some good comments about those. So very excited. Let me thank you, Greg. That's Greg DuCharme. You can find him on Twitter at TheRealGFD. I'm Rick Gehman. You can find me on Twitter at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll talk to you next time.